The hallway is eerily quiet, just the usual distant chatter and the squeak of sneakers on linoleum. You're grabbing a book from your locker, thinking about lunch, when a metallic screech cuts through the air. The fire alarm. No, this is different. It's the emergency alert. A cold, robotic voice echoes from the PA system, words that turn your blood to ice. Active shooter on campus. This is a lockdown. This is not a drill. Lockdown immediately. For a split second, nobody moves. It's a collective gasp, a frozen moment of disbelief. Your mind races. This can't be happening. Not here. Not to us. But the panic is a wave, and it crashes over everyone at once. Screams erupt. People scatter. A chaotic scramble for safety. Your heart hammers against your ribs. A frantic drumbeat of terror. Where do you go? What do you do? Your training kicks in. The drills you always rolled your eyes at. Run. Hide. Fight. Right now, running isn't an option. The nearest classroom is your only hope. You shove your books back into the locker, a stupid, automatic reflex, and sprint towards Mr. Henderson's history room. Others have the same idea. A bottleneck forms at the door, a desperate push of bodies. Someone stumbles, and you help them up. Adrenaline surging through your veins. Inside, the lights are already off. Mr. Henderson, his face pale, but his voice firm, is waving everyone away from the door. Get to the back, away from the windows. Quietly, the door clicks shut, and he jams a desk and a filing cabinet against it. The heavy thud of metal against wood is a small, temporary comfort. We're a huddled mass in the darkness, a collection of terrified breaths. Someone is sobbing softly. Someone else is trying to call their parents, their fingers trembling too much to unlock their phone. The silence that follows is worse than the alarm. It's a heavy, suffocating blanket. Every creak of the building, every distant shout, every siren wail that slowly grows louder outside feels like a death sentence. You can hear footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Getting closer, they stop right outside our door. The doorknob jiggles. Once. Twice. A metallic rattle that seems to echo in the very marrow of your bones. Everyone holds their breath. The room is so still, so quiet. You can hear the frantic beat of your own heart. Please, just keep walking. Don't stop here. Don't. The footsteps move on. A collective, silent sigh of relief sweeps through the room. But we're not safe yet. We're just waiting, trapped in the dark, listening to the sounds of a nightmare unfolding just feet away. This is the reality for too many students. It's a fear that no child should ever have to face. These events are terrifying and deeply traumatic. If you or someone you know has been affected by violence or is struggling with their mental health, please reach out for help. You can contact the National Crisis and Suicide Lifeline by dialing 988. There are people who care and want to support you. You are not alone. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and take care of each other. In a world that often celebrates superheroes and capes, sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones we see every day. They don't wear special suits or have superpowers. Instead, they wear cardigans and carry tote bags filled with graded papers. They're teachers. And today, I want to talk about a story that perfectly captures the profound courage found in our classrooms. It's a story that starts with a single, chilling image. Imagine a young teacher standing in a hallway. The air is thick with tension, maybe even fear. In front of him is an emergency exit, a clear path to safety, a way out. Freedom is just one step away. He could take it. No one would blame him. In a moment of crisis, our first instinct is survival. But he doesn't take that step. Instead, he pauses. He looks back over his shoulder, not at an empty room, but at his classroom. A room filled with his students, young faces looking to him for guidance, for reassurance, for safety. And in that moment, he makes a choice that speaks volumes about his character, his dedication, and his love for the children entrusted to his care. He turns away from the exit. He walks back toward the classroom door, and with a quiet, resolute finality, He closes it behind him, choosing to stay with them, to face whatever is coming, together. This isn't just a story about one teacher. It's a reflection of an unspoken promise that millions of educators make every single day. The promise to protect, to nurture, and to prioritize their students above all else. When a parent drops their child off at school, they are placing their most precious gift into the hands of these educators. They're trusting that their child will not only learn math and science, but that they will also be kept safe. This teacher's action, closing that door, is a powerful symbol of that trust being honored in the most extreme way imaginable. It's a quiet act of defiance against fear. It's a loud declaration that says, "Your children are my children, and I will not abandon them." It's the heart of a shepherd refusing to leave their flock. We often hear about the challenges of teaching. The long hours, the low pay, the emotional toll, and those challenges are real. But we don't always talk about this depth of commitment, this willingness to put themselves between their students in harm's way. This isn't something you can teach in a university course. It's a calling. It's an innate sense of responsibility that runs so deep, it overrides the basic human instinct to save oneself. Think about the teachers in your own life, the one who stayed late to help you with a tough subject, the one who noticed you were having a bad day and asked if you were okay, the one who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. They were all in their own way, closing the door on their own time, their own convenience, to be there for you. The story of this teacher by the emergency exit reminds us that heroism isn't always loud and explosive. Sometimes, it's the silent, steadfast closing of a door. It's a choice made in a heartbeat that reveals a lifetime of character. It is a testament to the idea that the most important lessons taught in a school are always found in a textbook. Sometimes, they are taught by example, in moments of unimaginable pressure. So next time you think of a hero, I hope you'll picture this teacher, and maybe take a moment to thank an educator in your life. They are the quiet guardians of our future, standing watch in classrooms everywhere, ready to close the door and stand with our children, no matter what. Thanks so much for watching. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that celebrates the everyday heroes among us. See you next time. The lights suddenly went out, plunging our classroom into an unsettling twilight. A collective gasp rippled through the room, followed by a deadening silence. Outside, the familiar sounds of the hallway, the distant laughter, the squeak of sneakers, the slamming of lockers had vanished. Something was wrong. Very wrong. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden quiet. I looked around at my classmates. Eyes were wide, faces pale in the dim light filtering through the blinds. Fear was a living thing in that room, thick and suffocating. Then, Mr. Harrison's voice cut through the tension. It was just a whisper, but it carried the weight of a command. Everyone, under your desks. Now, be as quiet as you can. There was no panic in his voice, just a calm urgency that jolted us into action. We scrambled, a clumsy shuffle of limbs and scraping chairs in the near dark. I squeezed myself into the small space under my desk, my knees pulled up to my chest. The cold metal pressed against my cheek. From my low vantage point, I could see Mr. Harrison moving swiftly and silently around the room. He locked the door, the click echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. Then he moved to the windows, pulling the blinds down completely, sealing us in darkness. He came to crouch near my desk. "Stay quiet," he whispered again, his voice right next to my ear. "Stay close to your friends. Everything is going to be okay." I looked up and saw his hands. They were trembling. Justo little, but they were definitely shaking. It was a small, human detail that somehow made the situation feel even more real and terrifying. This wasn't a drill. Drills were loud, announced, and orderly. This was quiet chaos. This was real fear. But seeing his shaking hands, and then looking at his face, his expression was resolute. His eyes scanning the room, counting heads, focused entirely on Yusai, felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. His fear wasn't for himself. It was for Yue. He was just as scared as we were. Maybe even more so, because he was the adult, the protector. He carried the weight of our safety on his shoulders, and yet He didn't let that fear paralyze him. He pushed it down, channeled it into action, and used his voice to build a fortress of calm around us. His voice was our anchor in a sea of uncertainty. The tremor in his hands told me he was human and vulnerable, but the steadiness in his voice told me he was a hero. In that moment, he wasn't just our history teacher. He was our shield. Time seemed to warp in that dark, cramped space. Seconds stretched into minutes, minutes into an eternity. We could hear muffled noises from outside, now running footsteps, distant shouts. Every sound made my muscles clench tighter. I held my breath, listening, waiting. I glanced at my friend, huddled under the next desk over. Tears were silently streaming down her face. I reached out a hand, and she grabbed it, our fingers locking together in a desperate grip. We weren't alone. We were a small, frightened huddle, but we were together, sheltered by the quiet courage of our teacher. I don't know how long we stayed like that, hidden in the darkness, listening to the sounds of a world gone wrong outside our door. But I will never forget the lesson Mr. Harrison taught us that day. It wasn't about dates or historical figures. It was about what it truly means to be brave. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling that fear, feeling it in your shaking hands and your racing heart, and still choosing to stand up, to protect others, to be the calm in the storm. It's a quiet strength, a whispered promise that says, I'm here. We'll get through this together. And we did. Thanks for watching. If you are moved by this story, please like and subscribe for more content that celebrates the everyday heroes among. The sounds from the hallway were getting closer. A slow, deliberate thud, thud, thud. Each one was a hammer blow against my heart. I looked at the faces in front of me, 25 pairs of eyes, wide with a terror that no child should ever know. They were just kids, here to learn about history, not to become a tragic part of it. My throat was dry, my hands shaking, but my mind was surprisingly clear. There was only one thing to do. I moved to the door, my own footsteps feeling impossibly loud on the linoleum floor. The heavy wooden door, usually a symbol of a safe learning space, now felt flimsy, like paper. I pressed my back against it, my muscles screaming in protest as I tried to make myself as wide and immovable as possible. I could feel the vibrations through the wood, the thudding steps now just outside. A shadow passed under the thin crack at the bottom of the door. Time seemed to warp, stretching and slowing down. Every breath I took was a lifetime. Every beat of my heart was a drum roll to an unknown, horrifying conclusion. I risked a glance back at my students. They were huddled together in the far corner, a small sea of frightened faces. A few were crying silently, tears tracking clean paths through the dust on their cheeks. Others were holding hands, their knuckles white. One boy, usually the class clown, was clutching a textbook to his chest like a shield. I tried to give them a reassuring look, a smile, anything. But my face felt frozen, a mask of grim determination. My job was to protect them, to be the barrier between them and the monster in the hall. The doorknob rattled, a metallic clank that sliced through the suffocating silence. It was a sound I'll never forget. My body went rigid. I pushed back with everything I had, my feet slipping slightly on the polished floor. I braced myself, digging my heels in. I could hear grunting from the other side, a sound of frustration. The knob twisted again, more violently this time. I prayed the lock would hold. I prayed asterisk. I asterisk would hold. The silence that followed was even worse. Had they given up? Were they moving on? Or were they just planning something else? The seconds ticked by, each one a small eternity. I strained my ears, listening for any sign, any sound. The hallway was quiet now. Too quiet. I didn't dare move. I didn't dare breathe. I was a statue carved from fear, cemented to this spot. My entire world had shrunk to this door, this small classroom, and the precious lives within it. Then, a new sound. Voices. Not the single, menacing presence from before, but multiple voices, shouting commands. Clear. Go. 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 The thudding started again, but this time it was different. It was faster, more urgent. The sound of heavy boots running, not stalking. Blue and red lights began to flash under the door, painting frantic, dancing patterns on the floor. Hope, a feeling I thought I'd lost forever, began to flicker back to life. It wasn't over, but the cavalry had arrived. I stayed pressed against the door, not moving until I heard the official knock, the one that says police. Open up. Only then did I let myself slide down, my legs giving out from under me. The relief was so overwhelming it was physically painful. I looked at my students, who were slowly starting to understand that the immediate danger had passed. Their fear was being replaced by a dawning sense of survival. We had made Italiano, we were alive. In that moment, surrounded by the aftermath of terror, we were a testament to the strength we find when we have something, or someone, to protect. This day would leave scars, deep and unseen, but it would also be a day we survived, together. Thank you for listening to this story. If you or someone you know is struggling, please know there's help available. You are not alone. The rhythmic thud of my own heart was the only drumbeat in the suffocating silence. Each beat echoed the ticking of a clock I couldn't see, a countdown to a finale I didn't want to witness. The air was thick, heavy with the metallic tang of fear and the unspoken words hanging between us. He was a shadow in the corner, a coiled spring of nervous energy, his eyes darting towards the door, 10 baked to me. The silence was deafening, a void filled only by the frantic symphony of my thoughts. I tried to focus on my breathing, pulling in the stale air and pushing it out, a tiny, repetitive act of defiance against the paralysis that threatened to consume me. My gaze drifted around the small, grimy room. A single, bare bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting long, distorted shadows that danced and morphed with every flicker, turning ordinary objects into monstrous shapes. The peeling wallpaper looked like sunburnt skin, curling away from the walls, as if trying to escape. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The wrong turn down a deserted street, the glint of something metallic in the twilight, the sudden, rough hand on my arm. It all replayed in my mind like a low-budget horror film, grainy and surreal. But this wasn't a movie. The cold sweat trickling down my back was real. The tremor in my hands was real. The man across the room, a stranger whose name I didn't know but whose face would be etched into my memory forever, was terrifyingly real. De Wilgrave was splitting into a chorus of rising and falling tones. Sirens, a beautiful, terrifying harmony that signaled both salvation and escalation. His head snapped up, his eyes widened, the frantic energy inside him sharpening into a dangerous point. He lunged towards the window, peering through a crack in the grimy pane. A string of curses tumbled from his lips. The wail of the sirens intensified, growing from a distant cry to an overwhelming roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. Red and blue lights flashed, painting the dirty walls in frantic, pulsing strokes. The world outside had finally found us. He backed away from the window, his movements jerky, unpredictable. He pointed the weapon at me again, his hand shaking. "Don't move," he snarled, his voice cracking. "Don't you dare make a sound." But the sound was already here. The screech of tires on pavement, the slamming of car doors, the shouted, clipped commands that cut through the noise of the sirens. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. It was the sound of the cavalry. My heart, which had been pounding in fear, now pounded with a wild, desperate hope. Heavy, Rhythmic footsteps thudded up the stairs, getting closer, closer, a drumbeat of imminent confrontation. They pounded down the hallway outside our door. Thump, thump, thump. A primal, terrifying sound. My captor froze, his back pressed against the wall, his whole body tense. We were two statues in a tableau of suspense, waiting for the final act. Then, a loud, splintering crash. The door flew open, slamming against the inside wall. A flood of figures in dark uniforms poured into the room. Weapons raised, a whirlwind of controlled force. For a split second, time seemed to slow down. I saw the stunned shock on my captor's face, the focused intensity in the eyes of the officers, the glint of light on their raised firearms. A voice, clear and commanding, cut through the tension. "Police, drop your weapon." The world exploded back into motion. Before he could even react, they were on him, a swift, practiced takedown that sent him sprawling to the floor. The weapon clattered away, skittering into a corner. Another officer was by my side instantly, a calm presence in the storm. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice gentle. And then another voice, from the doorway, echoed through the now settling dust. "Police. It's clear, clear." The word washed over me, a wave of pure, unadulterated relief. The tension that had held my body rigid for what felt like an eternity finally snapped. A sob escaped my lips, a ragged, involuntary sound. The danger was over. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence of before. This was a silence of safety, of aftermath, of survival. I looked up at the officer, the flashing lights outside, casting a halo around him. And for the first time in hours, I let myself breathe. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there. The sound of the alarm still echoes in my mind, a piercing shriek that cut through the ordinary afternoon. Chaos erupted. Shouts, the scrape of chairs, the frantic thud of running feet. In that blur of panic, all I saw were backs of heads, a stampede of fear heading for the doors, for safety, for anywhere but here. I was swept along with them, my heart pounding against my ribs, a wild drumbeat of pure terror. We spilled out into the hallway, a torrent of relief and ragged sobs. We were safe. We were out, and it was only then, when the immediate danger had passed, when we huddled together, catching our breath and wiping our tears, that we noticed he wasn't with us, our teacher. We looked back through the open doorway into the now empty classroom, and there he was. He was standing right where we had left him, by his desk. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't running. He was just standing. His face was pale, etched with an exhaustion that seemed to go deeper than bone. His shoulders were slumped, not in defeat, but like someone who had been carrying an immense, invisible weight. He hadn't run, while we, his students, scrambled for our own lives. Ayad Stajed. He had stood his ground, a silent, solitary guardian at the heart of the storm. He was making sure every single one of us got out first. His safety came last. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about courage shifted. It wasn't about loud declarations or flashy heroics. It wasn't the stuff of movies. Courage was quiet. It was the heavy silence in an empty room after the chaos had faded. It was the sight of a man, drained and spent, who chose to stand firm so that others could run free. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His stillness, his presence, spoke volumes. It said, "You are more important. Your safety comes before mine." We often look for heroes in grand gestures, in the heat of battle, but sometimes true heroism is found in the person who doesn't move, the one who absorbs the fear, who becomes the anchor in a sea of panic. He didn't need a cape. He just needed to be a teacher. He was our teacher, and in his silent, exhausted stance, he taught us the most profound lesson of all, that the greatest act of courage is to put others before yourself, without a single word. That is a lesson I will carry with me for the rest of my life. That is what true strength looks like. Thank you for watching.